like to give the floor to our first keynote speaker, Christi Wigle, CEO and co-founder, United Against Slavery, USA. Christi, welcome. I will give you the floor for your talk on combating human trafficking through data-driven approach.
Well, thank you for the introduction. And again, my name is Christi Wigle, and I'm the CEO and co-founder. It's okay. I'll answer Wiggle Wigle. It doesn't matter either way. But it's certainly a pleasure to be here today and just to share something that I am passionate about. And I'm actually going to share my screen. Please let me know if this does not come up correctly. Let's see. So will it allow me to share screen? It says that it's disabled. If not, I'll just pull it up and I will just talk from my presentation. Will it allow me to share the screen?
Yes, it should allow you. Yes.
Okay. I will try again here. Here we go.
It is working.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, certainly I am very thankful to be here today, and I appreciate the being invited to speak with my fellow field experts, fellow panelists, and also our moderator who is helping this come through. And I will start by just saying I've had the honor and privilege of knowing Charles since 2015, when he participated in our 2016 pilot study. And so thrilled to be connected again with Charles and everything that he is doing. And today I'm going to share something that I'm passionate about. I want to just give a little background information about United Against Slavery and our leadership there, just to put it in context for what I'm going to be sharing today, which is combating human trafficking with a data-driven approach. I personally have been serving in leadership and survivor advocacy for 12 years. I continue to work with both sex and labor trafficking survivors in their healing journeys. For any of us that serve in the anti-trafficking community, we all are able to very clearly identify areas of unresolved challenges that have slowed us down. And as we have started United Against Slavery 7 years ago, it has been important to us to be grounded in being survivor and trauma informed on all levels of everything that we do. It's not enough for any of us to speak against different atrocities and crimes and abuses against men, women, boys, and girls if we're not also having those survivors at the table that desire to be. For me, we have, again, serving for 12 years, have recognized along with our team at UAS that there is a significant need for solutions to a lot of these unresolved problems, some of which I'm going to speak about today. And through the lens of that, inequities do exist. That's the reason why we're here. That's the reason why we're all sharing today. And so I just want to just go ahead and get in. And first of all, just give a little bit of information. Most of us are very familiar with human trafficking. It's a lot different from 12 years ago when we were starting with grassroots and really trying to educate the community on human trafficking. But, you know, global estimates today put that there's a $150 billion criminal empire industry around the globe, and it impacts both sex and labor trafficking survivors and a number of different trafficking components, whether it's child labor, child soldiers, you know, domestic servitude, organ trafficking. And the reality is that it impacts both domestic and foreign nationals. And I can tell you in my 12 years here in the United States, you know, there's a lot of awareness about foreign nationals being trafficked. And for a lot of people, they believe that it's just foreign nationals that are being trafficked. And in my 12 years, I have actually worked with more domestic survivors than I have foreign nationals. But again, I do work with sex and labor trafficking survivors, and some have been trafficked from other countries. And as we know, traffickers prey upon vulnerable populations. And, part of what we're talking today is, some impacts, those inequities that can impact war-torn communities and migrants and refugees. And within human trafficking, traffickers will target vulnerable populations, whether it be men and women, boys and girls of color, the LGBTQ community, anyone, indigenous origins, anyone that traffickers can prey upon to benefit their own greed, they can become a target of human trafficking. And so as we consider all the progress that we've made across the global community over the last decade, we are making progress, and it is very rewarding to be able to see how much progress we've made. Again, hundreds of millions of dollars have been spent to combat labor and sex trafficking across the globe. But we're really at a pivotal time in history that we really need to just take a moment and say, is this enough? Have we made enough progress? And what changes do we need to make to help prevent trafficking from occurring, and also to help victims to be freed through extraction or escape, and also to provide resources to survivors in their healing journeys? And so, as we consider some questions, what slows down progress? Again, I've mentioned unresolved challenges. Want to just give some examples. What may some of those challenges be? At United Against Slavery, we have identified more than 20 different stakeholder groups that have played key roles in counter trafficking measures. And today, I just want to give you an example for service providers, direct victim service providers. As we consider different challenges that service providers may face, such as resources, survivor needs, organization needs, technology needs, safety concerns, I just want to highlight that, the challenges that are going to exist between those 20 different stakeholder groups are going to vary. They're not just going to vary between the different stakeholder groups, but they're also going to vary among the same stakeholder group in different states or provinces. And those are going to differentiate in different countries. So the challenges that service providers are going to face in Nigeria, there's going to overlap. We're going to see some overlap, but it's going to probably look a little bit different from United States or Romania and Australia or any other country. The same thing for law enforcement. It's going to look a lot different. Here in the United States, challenges that law enforcement may face out west is going to look a little different from what it does out east. And it's important for us to not just identify what those challenges are and how the challenges may differentiate from different geographical regions. We've got to be able to get to a point that we will stop and actually listen to each other, to hear what those challenges are, work together in a collaborative space to actually problem solve those challenges. Again, if our focus is to combat sex and labor trafficking, what are we doing to address those issues, those challenges that may slow down progress? So when we consider all the different components of anti-trafficking work around the globe, clearly we have awareness campaigns that exist. We have training programs to help educate not only the community at large, but also service providers, community leaders, law enforcement, task force agencies. We have philanthropists that, are really the bread and butter that help all of us to be able to do what we need to do. Legislation, it's vital that we have legislators across the globe that are passionate and committed to helping to end human trafficking. And collaboration. Collaboration is something I am passionate about. None of us have all of the answers, not one of us. It doesn't matter what our background is, what we bring to the table, none of us have all the answers. And so at United Against Slavery, it really is part of our mission to include others from other stakeholder groups across different regions in a sense of collaboration so that we can all bring the best of who we are to help combat this crime. But with all of this, as we reflect over the last decade, what is missing? And one of the things that we have found at United Against Slavery, again, from being stakeholders ourselves, is frontline data. That is what's missing. Because if we're not able to identify and document areas, those challenges that exist, and collaboratively work together to help combat labor and sex trafficking, how are we ever going to know what is and isn't working? And this is the focus that we have really focused on at United Against Slavery, is collecting and disseminating comprehensive frontline data in an anonymized surveys called the National Outreach Survey. And I'm going to give some examples of some of the data that we've collected, in addition to our current study that we literally just finished up Friday of this past week. So when we consider combating trafficking, it is vital that we make decisions that are data driven. And unfortunately, there is so many outdated statistics that are quoted as current, as factual today, and they're outdated. And some organizations will misrepresent data, statistics that are that may have been collected in previous years to help promote, their own fundraising capacities. And so what I did is I created the National Outreach Survey, or the NOS, several years ago. And within that National Outreach Survey, again, we have identified more than 20 stakeholder groups that play a role, contribute towards effective counter-trafficking measures. And part of our focus within the National Outreach Survey is never to silo the data, to always make that data available, the anonymized data, that is, make that available to the public. One of the things that we say is, data is just data unless it becomes actionable and it's not siloed. And so the data that we collect at United Against Slavery is being made available to the public at large, so that the entire anti-trafficking community can utilize that data to help their individual efforts, no matter where they are in the globe. We believe that the NOS is a measurement tool that really helps us to find the effectiveness of anti-trafficking programs that may exist, or to show areas where improvement needs to come in. The reality is that there are no oversight agencies across the globe that oversee all anti-trafficking work. And to be honest with you, anyone can literally go start an anti-trafficking organization and self-identify themselves as an expert and go start fundraising. And so we really are in a season to where we need to just take a step back and identify the areas that need improvement, areas that literally have been slowing down progress. And for any of us that have served in this movement for any length of time, most of us could probably start listing off the unresolved challenges that we have faced, no matter which stakeholder group that we identify in. And so that is one of the things that we have been able to pursue with the National Outreach Survey. And there's several things that we believe that making data-driven decisions can help improve counter-trafficking work. And as you can see here, we do believe that every stakeholder group can leverage data collection and predictive analysis to do several things. First of all, inform awareness and training programs. Imagine if we're able to collect data on the front lines to be able to find out what they know or don't know, and then be able to inform future awareness and training programs, so that for some training programs, we need to move beyond HT 101, Human Trafficking 101, and need to be able to covering more in-depth coverage of sex and labor trafficking. But through collecting data, we're able to decide and determine where those areas of improvement that need to be. It's also to focus legislation. Even here in the United States, we have bipartisan congressional support for this frontline data, because data is how we're able to help make better decisions of what we're doing, introduce new legislation for appropriations and funding efforts. And we also believe that data can help improve enforcement and preventative actions. Ultimately, everything that we do at United Against Slavery is to improve survivor resource allocation and to to see more victims freed from enslavement and to have more resources available to them in their healing journeys. And ultimately, we want to see an improvement to counter trafficking work over the next decade. So I want to just share some preliminary data that we've collected with the 2021 National Outreach Survey for Transportation and some previous data that we had collected. The NOST, as we call it, NOST, we were actually thrilled to have been selected by the U.S. Department of Transportation in their first ever Combating Human Trafficking and Transportation Impact Award. And I want to just go through these real quick. So for this right here, and I can't really see this top, in our 2016 pilot study, remember as I was talking about service providers, I want you to just look at some of the statistics that we collected here. When we ask, what do you think are the greatest contributors to a lack of unity among advocates, survivors, and leaders? Excuse me. I want you to look at, competitiveness for funding. When we talk about unresolved challenges, there is such limited funding and resources in anti-trafficking work that 67% of survivor leaders indicated that competitiveness for funding is a real issue that breaks unity and creates division. 59% of allies, non-survivor leaders, had answered that. And I want you to just look through some of those areas: lack of best practices and standards, duplication of efforts, lack of communication among stakeholders, turf wars. All of these are unresolved challenges that need to be addressed. And one other data point that I want to just share from our 2018 lingering medical ailment pilot study indicated 100% of survivors that participated in that study had lingering medical ailments. How can we help the healthcare community to be able to come up with additional programs, resources, and health needs if we're not able to first find out what those needs are? That is where frontline data comes in. And I do just want, as I'm wrapping this up, I've got just a couple of minutes left, with our current study that we just wrapped up this past Friday, again, the National Outreach Survey for Transportation, we asked a series of questions to see if they had concerns about misidentifying signs of human trafficking. Guys, 54% of the respondents indicated that they had concerns. 34% of those said that they will not even report trafficking because of those concerns. And then another 33% said possibly they may not report. I just want to put this in perspective as to why making data-driven decisions is so important. We can look at those three statistics, those data points right there, to know that over 60% of respondents in this study have indicated that they may or probably will not report trafficking because of concerns of misidentification. And what that tells us, just from looking at those data points, is that there is a potential for at least 60% of victims that may be coming through the transportation systems that may never be found because the frontline workers have concerns. Excuse me. And I won't go through these down at the bottom, but as you can see, those are the list of concerns that were mentioned as to why they wouldn't report trafficking. Some of them include being ignored, getting sued. The largest one is embarrassing the passenger or customer. I'm so sorry. Embarrassing the passenger or the customer. This is a huge deal for anyone that works in anti-trafficking to know that this large a percentage of individuals may not report because they have concerns. And so, as we consider how can we improve counter-trafficking efforts if we don't listen to the data of what is and isn't working. And as you can see, it's true for all of us, guys. It's true for all stakeholders, frontline workers, philanthropists, legislators, academics, and even students that are wanting to make an impact. Data is key to improving counter-trafficking measures. And so today, as I'm wrapping up my part of my presentation, how can you be part of the solution? How can others around you be part of the solution? And what can you do to help combat human trafficking with a data-driven approach? I'm going to push these forward because these are so important. When you use data in anti-trafficking, source your data responsibly, quote your sources, look for the most recent statistics that are available instead of something 20 or 25 years ago, and don't sensationalize the data. If there's one victim, it's one victim too much. There's no reason for us to stretch the data to make it look like there's more out there or less out there. Quote what's there, what's been reported. Because again, if there's one, it's one too many. And something that we say often at United Against Slavery, truly survivors are counting on us to figure all of this out. And we believe that combating human trafficking with a data-driven approach is the missing tool, the measurement tool that needs to be implemented to improve counter-trafficking work over the next decade. And so for today, I truly appreciate the opportunity to kind of share with you all and to speak and share something I'm passionate about. But thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Christi. Thank you so much for your hard work. Thank you for your presentation. I would like to give the possibility to our colleagues if they may have some questions for you. If there are any questions, I would please ask you to raise the hand here in the chat box if there are any questions for Christi regarding the presentation she gave. If there are no questions and no remarks, we will thank you again, Christi. That was an amazing presentation, and yes, please.
I think I have a question.
Okay.
Christi, thanks for your very elaborate presentation. I'm a bit worried about the situation when you say that combating human trafficking with data is the missing link, when it comes to how this problem is being addressed, at different levels. You've made some suggestions. I'm wondering if there are subnational responsibilities that must be considered in efforts at combating human trafficking, especially at the institutional governmental level. What's your view about subnational efforts at institutional fronts, regarding combating human trafficking with data?
I apologize. What was the direct question on that?
Well, the question is, what is your view about subnational institutional responsibilities regarding data-driven approach to combat human trafficking? Do you have any view around that?
I do, and I tell you, it's one of the greatest challenges that we have, because all of us are existing in this space, bringing the best of what we have to help combat trafficking. And they're individuals, countries, nations, federal agencies, local, statewide, no matter where it is geographically across the world. What's missing is data, that frontline data, because we are using old data that has been collected in the last 10, 20 years to inform our work today, and it's outdated. And so as nations are looking, in fact, in a couple of weeks, I'm going to be speaking at a USDOT International Conference with APEC, which has 21 member nations, a part of APEC. And that's part of the message that I'm going to be sharing, is the responsibility that countries have to make sure that they are using updated data that they are providing, collecting, and making that available to everyone working in their countries, so that we all have updated data that we can use of what's relevant today. When we use outdated data, when we use sensationalized data, it doesn't allow us to address the issues that are most pressing across all the different stakeholder groups that are working. So you know, I share the concern that you've mentioned as far as engaging nations to take a more proactive approach to ensure that their countries have updated data. And that's what we're focused on at United Against Slavery. And I can tell you from our transportation study that we just concluded, we had 5 different nations, countries that participated, so much that we engaged the U.S. embassies for 4 of those to ensure that they were engaged in what we were doing. So I hope that answers your question, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Christi, again. Thank you, Professor Allen. If there are, oh, okay, we have a hand raised. Okay, Amaso Boma.
Good morning, Christi.
Good morning.
Okay, I listened to your very wonderful presentation, and I have a problem. In the absence of updated information at the levels of trafficking, especially in a country like Nigeria, how does the government respond? Because you talked about sensationalization of data and all that. Since the records are not updated, so the only thing policymakers can do is to project. Now, in that projection, it is possibly they might go over the top. Don't you think that since the data is not updated and they project and say, okay, we estimate that it could be a bigger or a higher number of people that are being trafficked, it could spur them into action. Since the data is not updated and we need to project or assume or just, pick up a figure and say, okay, we project that this is the number of people who are being trafficked. And let's say it's a very high number, which is not accurate, but that can also make governments to act. So I don't know what you have to say about that.
So we do not do prevalence studies, and that's what you're discussing is a prevalence study. Our colleagues at the Walk Free Foundation do every 2 years will put out the Global Slavery Index, the GSI report, and that is a prevalence study. They do that in collaboration with the ILO. We will never do prevalence studies because that's not our lane, that's not our focus. So when prevalence studies are introduced every 2 years, they're always flawed. There's never going to be an accurate prevalence study because we will never know how many victims there are. But it's important for our colleagues to do those prevalence studies so that we can have numbers that we can work toward. Again, they're always going to be estimates. What we do at United Against Slavery is we go to the front lines. Again, it's not prevalence studies. We go to the frontline workers, the service providers, law enforcement, healthcare, the judicial system, and we ask them what is and isn't working because we want to help reduce the prevalence numbers. But the type of research that we do at United Against Slavery is to help find out what is and isn't working on the front lines. So it's a little bit different. So to answer your question as far as what can governments do, they need those prevalence studies. Every country needs the prevalence studies. And I know the TIP report that comes out every year from the government, they'll gauge every country as to how effective they are. We need that data for every country to be able to work towards improving their efforts. What we're doing at United Against Slavery is we take it on a more granular level and we go to the front lines. And again, working with different countries and hopefully in the future working with even more countries. I will tell you, Nigeria is one of the countries that we've had data collected on with this transportation study. So I'm pleased to share that with you today. But it is something that we hope to work with additional governments from a frontline data collection standpoint, because we want to equip all of those working on the front lines so that they can help improve what they're doing, so that they can use data to get additional resources to help provide services to victims and survivors.